I have been working as an attorney for almost 10 years, and I do work in nonprofit organizations, which is for low-income victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, and trafficking. Right now, I'm working at a place that does primarily sexual assault and trafficking, and civil and criminal. And then in the past, I've done work in domestic violence and family law, as well as civil rights and immigration a little bit as well. And so before, yeah, actually, no, the whole time, like in my entire career, the small talk has been very limited, and we go straight to like very deep personal things. And it can be very intimate, especially compared to other areas of law, because we're learning about someone's like personal life, intimate life with their partner or with an ex, or about their sexual assault. It's a very personal thing. And so it is very important for us to make the other person feel comfortable, like the client feel comfortable telling us about these things and to gain their trust, because it's a very difficult thing to do. Because, when someone talks to like a lawyer or a psychologist or a doctor about something so personal, it's kind of awkward because it's very one-sided. Like the service provider knows so much more about them than this person knows about, the service provider. So it's very difficult to do. I can empathize with them. And so it is important for us to make them feel comfortable, and as much as we can at least, and gain some trust so that they feel okay telling us about these details. And I don't know if small talk's the best way to do that. I do think like body language helps a lot, tone helps a lot. And sometimes they'll say something, or they'll be afraid to tell me something, and I'm like, listen, like no judgment, I've heard it all, like no worries. And our tone and how we respond to someone when they tell us about something really does make a difference. Like nothing phases me anymore, I think, because I've heard so many things. So if someone tells me about something crazy that they themselves did, I'm just like, oh, okay. And the fact that I'm not like, oh my God, what do you mean? I think they are automatically like, I'm okay, I can continue, and no one's freaking out anywhere, And so it is difficult to kind of create that safe space for someone, very genuinely, sincerely gain someone's trust, especially when they're talking about something so intimate and personal and vulnerable. But, it's part of the work, and I think we get better at it as we continue, just like in all fields.
It does seem in many avenues of law, the focus is always on financial or ownership of a business, because there's just this focus on capitalism. But when it comes to a individual perspective, whether it's someone who's in immigration or other avenues that are more people focused, more individual focused, such as yours, which is focusing on victims of domestic abuse, victims of domestic violence, whether they're married, whether they're in a relationship. So it just comes down to how are you able to address those needs of your clients, and especially thinking about myself being a member of the South Asian community, there's so many gray areas within our culture and our our religious beliefs that, oh, this is abuse, this isn't abuse. Whereas if you looked at it from a more American lens, some of the things that we do are very clearly abuse. It's just something that's been passed down generationally to be normalized. So not just with the South Asian community, but also I'm sure you see a bit of variability with the Black community and with the white community, and what people from different socioeconomic statuses, what kind of abuse patterns do you see there? I mean, Chicago itself is just such a diverse city. I'm sure you see many different avenues of abuse. And how is it that you address those concerns of your clients?
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And I thanks for bringing that up. It's such a good point, because there's a lack of attorneys or service providers generally in this area of to work to advocate on behalf of victims of domestic violence or sexual assault or any gender-based violence generally, not even just attorneys. I'm talking about any advocates, right? And so I work on the side, I work with this organization called Heart, and it's a nonprofit organization. I'm just one of their independent contractors, just on their team, but they do have a smaller core staff that kind of runs the organization. And they work They're nationwide, nonprofit, and work to advocate for, its HEART stands for Healing, Education, Advocacy, Research, and Training. And so doing all that on behalf of South Asians and Muslims around the US. And there's so much that like has not been, it's like stuff that I and other South Asians have grown up without learning about. For example, we're just told don't date, right? But what about, okay, fine, but if you do, here's how to give consent. We don't talk about consent, right? Or we didn't in our generation. Now I think they're starting to a little bit more. But a lot of like sexual health, sexual violence topics were not discussed. And I think that that's why it's so important for our communities, so that we can start to counter all of those normalized norms, that we have in our culture that in a different lens, or in a legal lens, I should say, not even American, because even in a lot of American cultures, things are seen as normal when they're actually abusive, in my opinion, based on what I've seen. But from a legal lens would be abusive, right? Or from a moral lens would be, or even an Islamic lens would be abusive.